Hello guys, this is Goodlike, and this is a random video of Dark Souls 3. So, I've been thinking a bit, and I've realized that throughout Dark Souls 2, as I was playing it, I shit-talked the game a lot. And I do stand by a lot of what I shit-talked at it. But with Dark Souls 3, it might be a little bit different, who knows? And I wanted to have, like, somewhere, someplace, that I elaborate on this. I suppose I half intended to make some kind of video about Dark Souls 2 sucking at the end of the day after the Let's Play, but I never really came around to it, and I don't really care to elaborate further. But now I'm playing Dark Souls 3. I thought, okay, let's talk. So that, for one, maybe my misconceptions, if I have any, could be addressed. Maybe something super easy, but it's just super hard for me because I'm not locking on, and someone can go around and tell me that. Or maybe I'm misremembering some of the games, and you can refresh my memory on how something was going on. Who knows? Who really knows? I don't. That's why this video exists. So there's a couple of things I've been, would I say unhappy? I wouldn't say unhappy, but on watch while I was playing Dark Souls 3 and then, editing the previous session. The biggest one is the attack queue. I immediately, as soon as I saw myself whine about the attack queue over and over and over again, I thought, come on. There was an attack queue in the first game. Maybe I'm putting this out of proportion. But no. Turns out a lot of people really shit-talk the attack queue in Dark Souls 3. In fact, it's so ridiculous that some things can queue so far that you can dodge after you've been hit. You get hit, staggered, and then you dodge when you don't want to. I don't know if that's still the case, because, the game has many versions, so maybe that's no longer in the game. Certainly it didn't happen to me, but it does have a huge attack queue. Now, the attack queue, to my understanding, works just the same as in all the other games. If you spam buttons, they get added to a sort of a queue and executed off of that queue. Now this queue isn't limitless, because obviously if you spam 100 buttons in a couple of seconds, you're not going to be stuck attacking for 10 minutes, just playing out that 100 animations one after the other. Really, the issue, as I see it, is that either the last input that you put in is not the one that is actually queued up, or the period for the queuing up is far greater than before. One of those two things is happening, and I can't tell which. Yet, anyway. But it really fucks with the gameplay, for me at least. Here's the issue with having such a ridiculous queue that you cannot apparently cancel or whatever. It's the fact that there's no real actual way to know that your input has registered. When I click a button, I won't know if that click will go through, because I don't know when it is registered to the queue or not. Because, like I said, there is a timer, certainly, that it's not infinite. There definitely is a limit as to how long an input gets stored. Otherwise, again, you would go on for minutes after spamming the button really hard, which doesn't happen. So there clearly is some drop-off point. If you click before that drop-off point, it won't register. If you click after that drop-off point, it will register, or something like that. Another interpretation is that if you just click twice, it will execute 2 attacks, and it just always stores 1, or something like that. I have no idea. You could tell me if you know. I've very loosely looked into it, but I don't feel like spending arduous amount of time investigating mechanics just for what? So I can whine at them better? I don't think so. I can whine at them just fine right now. But the biggest problem is that you don't know, okay, is this button registered? Because the game doesn't really tell you. It can't. There's no square of queues, a square where you see your next input that has been queued. There's no such thing. And since there's no such thing, I don't know if I hit it. And the game is obviously not explicit about the timing or whether it stores it or what have you. So what other choice do I have but spamming when the game doesn't tell me what my inputs are doing? Like, if you don't get it, I press attack button twice. Obviously, the second press is still happening during my first attack. Will I attack twice? Does this depend on how fast I click the buttons? Things like that are not obvious by looking at the UI or anything in the game, and that's why spam clicking is the way people play this game. Because it's the only way for them to be sure, yeah, I've definitely let the game know I want this particular input at this particular time. If the game had a better way to display these inputs, or didn't act so stupidly with the queue, there wouldn't be any problem, of course. So that's my problem with the attack queue, and I'm sure to whine about it some more if it happens more, and it will probably happen more. Another thing I've noticed that the dodge hitbox seems a bit off. The dodge animation, I would say, I guess, is a better way to blame it. I mean, the point is that I've looked through some times where I gotten hit when I felt that I shouldn't have gotten hit, and honestly, the way it looked, frame by frame, looked like, the attack didn't hit me. Like, it hit air that was very, very close, but it didn't actually look like it hit me. Yet I still take damage. Yeah, that basically means that the hitbox, when you're dodging, isn't representative of what you see. It's more of like a distance function. So I don't like that particular aspect. It's really annoying to, see that an attack completely missed you and then still take damage. Once again, this is an issue of feedback where the game shows you something, but it's clearly not the case, or it doesn't give you correct, accurate information in order to do something about it. You start doubting, maybe I did get hit in that moment, because, it's a matter of, frame by framing it to actually tell that there is, in fact, no hit. I guess the point is that dodging away from things is not as effective as you may think. The next thing that rustled my jimmies was the parrying stuff. Of course, we have the fucking knights. The fucking knights with their absurd amount of attacks that would put a black knight to shame. I remember distinctly that Black Knights didn't have a super fast landing slash. They had a slash, alright, but you could parry it no problem. It was just like, you see it coming, you click parry, you're done. But these guys have the Gwyn style of slash, where, the animation is super short, so the part of the animation which represents attacking, as in making the strike, because an animation is two parts. It's prepare the attack and then make the strike, right? And effectively, from what I've seen through my gameplay, if you want to parry something, most of the time what you want to do is hit parry as soon as the strike starts, because then their attack will start landing and your parry will hit them, and then it'll be whoosh, and you will have a parry. But with attacks like the Gwyn strike, as I'm going to call it now, it's so short, and the strike portion of the animation is so short, it's literally a couple of frames. There's no way to react to that. It's like you have to parry in a completely different way where you're not actually looking at what's happening and pressing a button, I would say reactively, but instead you have to memorize the possible moves. Which is fair enough. I suppose that you can do that with parrying. But here's the issue with that. It means that most people don't want to give a shit about parrying. The reason parrying is so cool in Dark Souls 1 is because if you get the hang of it, this whole click it when you see the attack coming, you can actually parry pretty much everything that can be parried with just using that strategy. So it's a skill that you can learn. There's no skill here. Not in the sense of that you can reuse it. Like if I were to refer to something as a skill, I would say that you can take knowledge of that skill and apply it to all situations in the future and come out more successful for having this knowledge. You won't come out more successful for having this knowledge against Gwyn strikes because they don't work that way. So you will have to literally get hit by a Gwyn strike to learn that the character has that animation. Then you'll have to fucking constantly look at the character to figure out, oh, this is the specific animation that is for the Gwyn strike. Hope that he doesn't have any other animations that are literally exactly the same or so much the same that you have to literally record the fucking person doing the animations and watch frame by frame and memorize. Do you see the problem here? The problem is that in order to effectively be able to parry those attacks, you have to go and take so many external measures that are not part of a game that there's no point. There's no point to try to parry them. If I ever try to parry a knight again, I'm either doing it from a very particular position, meaning that I've strategically placed a huge distance between myself and the knight in order to force the knight to use a different moveset, because why the fuck would he use a Gwyn strike when he's miles away from me, right? Doesn't make any sense. Or I'm tilted and I'm now parrying because I just don't give a shit anymore. And I just want to fucking get over it, and dying is better at this stage than playing properly, because there's no point. I'm not going to well, I am going to record every single fight, obviously, because I'm making a Let's Play. But I'm not gonna frame by frame every single fucking animation just so I learn how to do that. I feel that's a waste of time. Even if it would give me something, I don't need that something, because I can just defeat the knights in some other way. Like I said, using a strategic approach, rather than, oh, I can parry your attacks because I spend an hour looking at animations at 1 frame per second. What's the point of that? This is a really critical thing to me, that I absolutely loathe games that, in order to play them efficiently, they clearly push you out of the actual game and force you to do other things. This is precisely why you won't find me playing League of Legends or any other MOBA or any strategy game. Because in order to play those games efficiently, I can't just hop in and play. I will be destroyed, completely and utterly wrecked, because I have no idea what I'm doing. And the whole point of a game is knowing what to do, and then doing it correctly, of course. But there's a first step to it that you can't avoid. And I could just play the game over and over again until I figure it out, but that would be so grossly inefficient that I'd probably take so long that the next game would come out by the time I would actually learn anything that way. People who do that usually have a very strict, preparation for it. They invest huge amount of time every day. They may have even a team going and all that stuff. I don't have those things, unfortunately, not at the moment. And honestly, even if I did, I'd probably find something better to do. Like you can see, even in this case where I have the tools to learn how to parry super fast attacks, I don't want to, because at the end of the day, all that time will not have made the game more interesting for me. I'll just be able to accomplish some kind of very specific thing that I don't particularly care about accomplishing, because it's not a feat that I particularly am interested in. Man, this fucking topic went really far, but I think that's my point with parrying. I'll still, I guess, try it every now and then because it's cool to parry with a katana, but whatever. Speaking of parrying with katana, I don't even have this in my notes to talk about, but come on. Why does it make any sense that a physical attack with a physical weapon takes up your magic points or what have you? Those points are clearly intended for magic, right? I'm not crazy, right? You don't have uses anymore or something. You instead use up your blue mana bar to cast spells. And you have to maintain it. What? I mean, it's a cool idea for magic. I mean, by cool, I mean, obviously everyone's already done it, and except in a Dark Souls game, so maybe it really works here. I don't know, because I'm not a mage. Maybe if I like the game very much, I'll play it through like a mage, and then I'll figure out, oh, this is a disaster. But who knows? Let's not go there right now. What we should go into instead is the fact that it makes absolutely no sense to tie in the system into physical attacks. Okay. Some of the weapons I heard, or well, by heard I mean I read, but not anything specific, just in general, have like these special skills that have magical effects. And previously, those effects would use up your durability, and now they use up mana. Honestly, I still would err on the side of durability as a more sensible one to take away. But why would you tie in everything into this? Like, where is the fucking mana usage by putting my sword in a scabbard? Is it because the scabbard is floating? Is that the reason? The scabbard is floating next to my character, so it requires magical power to do that. That really makes so much sense, doesn't it? It just makes absolutely no sense. You already have a bar for physical attacks. It's called the stamina bar, and there's a reason why it regenerates, because the whole point of physical attacks is that they don't fail you randomly when you run out of charge for it. They only fail you sporadically when you try to spam them too much. It's a different playstyle. Why would you do this? I would understand maybe, if there was some extra magical effect to this. Like, my fucking, what's the take out of sheet strike would do like penetration damage. It would glow fucking blue or some shit. Now it just makes a noise. I know it has some effects, like I think it knocks down people kind of far or something, but it's still hazy. I don't know all the details yet. It just feels really dumb. At least you can still do it, but it feels less effective or something. I don't know. I really don't know. This isn't like the other things that I mentioned in this video so far. It's more of a like, why you do this? Why you mix mechanics that need not be mixed? Whatever. Maybe it's not even a big deal. Maybe I'll have that one flask of non-Estus just in case. Nah, it's never gonna happen. Why the fuck would I use that if with the weapon I use right now? Like, I'll do slightly less damage, then I'll just use different attacks. The next thing that pissed me off is the failed parries, which literally are parries that succeeded but failed at the same time. And I could choke up one of them as being like some kind of like impossible glitch that occurred through the stars aligned to the extent that you won the lottery, but it happened twice. So clearly this is a regular thing in the game where you parry an enemy and he plays his parry animation, but you still take damage. What the fuck? How does that make any sense? Is it just that you still take damage even if you parry an enemy normally? And then I just took a huge chunk of damage because the enemy that I was fighting was just doing so much more damage than all the other guys that the reduction to those guys' damage made it seem negligible, and I didn't even notice. But the reduction to this guy's damage was too weak to make it negligible. I mean, that would be like something straight out of Witcher 2. I didn't like Witcher 2 that much, especially the combat. So taking damage when you parry is the stupidest thing ever. Like, it literally means no one would ever use it. I don't think that's the case. I think I just made all that up. Well, I definitely made all that up because that's like a plausible and logical and consistent explanation for what happened that I could accept. I would extremely dislike it, but I could accept it as a consistent framework within which the game is made. Now it's just like, oh, well, this one particular enemy can still kill you even if you parry him. Not even half parry. No, to properly parry him, he still kills you. Because reasons. Because apparently that makes sense. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why this is the case in this game. I hope this was just still... Maybe I did win the lottery twice, that fucking video. That would be fucking amazing. I'll admit, if that is the case, if I somehow manage to win the lottery twice within the span of a few minutes in a video game, I'll take it. I'll fucking take it. But something tells me that's not the case. Like, I don't know. I just have a feeling. So the last thing I want to cover is some of the boss stuff. So the dog boss with the frostbite has two phases. Like, obviously, he has two phases. His first initial phase is the passive phase, in which he kind of attacks you, but he also keeps his distance. The second phase is the aggressive phase, where he loses all pretenses, gains 3 times the size of his hitbox, like the Grinch in Stealing Christmas, and just goes ham on your ass, or to the best of his ability anyway. In principle, I don't think I am against having an enemy that has... Well, no, having a fight, specifically, that has 2 different phases. And different even insofar as the intensity and the moveset used. Like, just 2 different characters. I guess it's not a Dark Souls thing, but Solaris and Lunaris from Path of Exile. There you go. That's the fight like that. I don't know how it relates in this game at all, but just go with me. I'm not against the idea of it, I suppose. What I am against, though, is the idea that an enemy has 2 different movesets. The same guy that looks exactly the same just has 2 different movesets. The reason I don't like this, and it's not a deal breaker, of course, or anything like that. It's just something I don't like, and if the game keeps doing it, I'm not gonna like it more. But I've always been on the side of Dark Souls 1, wherein, yes, it forces you, in some sense of the forces, to keep doing things over and over and over. Like, you die, you go back to the bonfire, and you have to run again through the part of the game that you've already beaten. Now, the reason this doesn't bother me, even though I am literally probably the person who least likes repeating things over and over again, is because, for one, most of these runs are really short. They take like less than a minute. I think from a bonfire to a bonfire, you can easily find a route that doesn't even take you a minute between bonfires or bosses. I can't think of any that would make me think, yeah, this takes like 10 years to get to this boss. But there's always all kinds of shortcuts you can find and all that stuff. And that's why I'm not against it, because the game is designed in such a way where there are ways that you can get through it really quickly without needing to constantly bog yourself down with fighting. Fighting is optional in Dark Souls 1. Pretty much almost everything. There's a few places where it's a bit tight to get past enemies without at least hitting them, but I don't think there's anything aside from certain bosses that you have to kill or else. Anything that would fight back anyway and wouldn't be just there for the killing or something like that. What about having 2 movesets is problematic to this is that they come in at a later time. So essentially the first part of the fight is practically irrelevant. It may as well not exist. I mean, if it was the harder part of a fight, maybe that would work. But even then, I would say it would still cause issues, because what really is a harder fight? What really is a harder fight? It's a little bit hard to quantify in simple terms. You can't just say, oh yeah, this part is clearly easier. I mean, in this case, you can sort of do that, but again, like the first time I ran into the dog, he completely obliterated me. The second time, I think I got to the second phase without problems, because I started playing myself a bit more logically, try to get on his hind legs, and it worked. But that's just a random thing I tried, and it just happened to work. So I don't know if that's good enough to say this is totally easier in every single way, fashion, and so on and so forth. And that's not the point anyway. What I'm trying to really allude to here is that by having two of these portions, you've introduced a huge barrier of entry that you must go through. You can't skip the first part of the boss. To my knowledge, maybe there is some way to actually immediately get him to 50% health. I don't think so. I really doubt it. But that's part of a problem. Introducing this kind of a thing kind of goes against that notion that you can just get wherever you want to as fast as you want in Dark Souls. Because beating this guy requires you to get through two phases. And the first time you're going to enter it, I believe you should have a chance to beat the boss. The first time you enter a fight. You probably won't beat it, but you have a chance. I don't think that applies to this dog. I think this dog fight is designed in such a way that the person pretty much has no chance of beating him on the first try. Even if he managed to figure out the first phase, he will get killed by the second phase. There's a minuscule chance he won't, but when I say chance, I mean a realistic one, not like 0.1% or something. And of course, I'm talking about blind people. I'm not talking about people who know of what's coming. I'm talking, someone just playing randomly like I do. I have no idea what the boss does when I enter the first time, hopefully. Yeah, I'm probably not going to win. I certainly didn't even come close to winning the first time I went in, but I had a chance. If I applied the same strategy I did in the second one, well, I had a chance to get to the second phase. But there's no way I could have beaten the second phase on the first try, because I would have tried to continue applying that strategy and I would have died. And to me, this is not very good. It's pretty hard to quantify what would fall and what wouldn't fall under this, because, for example, some enemies could just have a lot of attacks, so you just happen not to use them the first time you fight them or whatever. I don't know. Maybe I'm asking a lot out of the game, and maybe this isn't really possible in a meaningful way. But yeah, maybe what I'm really asking is a bit less than what I just said, like you have a chance, but the idea itself, the principle that the enemies are designed in such a way that theoretically the goal of these enemies is to be as close to be beatable on the first try within some small probability, of course, of that happening. Okay, this is very, very, very bizarre what I'm asking of right now. I mean, a lot of this you could apply to some of the most notorious annoying bosses in Dark Souls. Let's take Capra Demon. Why is he so notoriously annoying? Because the first time you run into him, you're gonna get your complete ass whooped. You have no chance, almost, of beating him on the first try, because he has fucking dogs with him, and these dogs are gonna get in your way and get you killed, because you're facing the Capra Demon. There's ways to counter it, of course. I'm not saying it's completely impossible, but for a blind person not knowing what's coming, he's just gonna die. Bed of Chaos, another example of a fight that, it changes. At least on Bed of Chaos, one saving grace to it, which I think puts it on the very edge of what I would find acceptable, is that it retains its progress. And I think that would be an acceptable compromise, that if I pissed off this fucking dog, on the first time and I died, but then I come back in and now I fight the pissed off aggressive dog the entire time, I think I would be fine with that. It's not technically won the first try, but second try. So I think my compromise is that you can have a few times to try, assuming that your fight involves certain mechanics that involve phases. So you can have phases which would extend it by amount of tries by the amount of phases there are, because the phases would keep the progress. That's what I want. There we go. What would be a fight that I do enjoy that has like these kind of changes? I suppose gargoyles would be the first one from Dark Souls 1, and technically Dark Souls 2 had gargoyles too, but they were a bit different. You fight a gargoyle and the second one descends later. And this seems like, okay, I would be against that because you have no chance of defeating gargoyles. But you're wrong, because while the fight does change, the mechanics of the fight doesn't. I wouldn't be pissed if a gargoyle starts off alone and then some random other enemy comes in, like let's say a Black Knight spawns instead. You know, and now you're fighting not just two gargoyles, but a gargoyle and a Black Knight. The Black Knight also is a bit of a bad example because you already faced Black Knights before. So maybe something from the future? What would be from the future? I can't really think of anything on the spot, and this video has gone long enough, so I'm not gonna push it, even though I would cut out the thinking parts. I want to go take a shit, actually. That's why. That's the real reason. So, the point really is, gargoyles are fine because you're just fighting two gargoyles instead of one from that point of the fight. So if you just adjust your gameplay, you still can win, because that other gargoyle, while he's more defensive, he still uses the same thing. He still uses fire, he uses the same weapon. It's just that you have now a bit less room for attacks. But the fight itself fundamentally doesn't change. If you were able to get to a certain gargoyle in a certain way, you will also be able to get to this gargoyle in a certain way. They are technically different. Again, I say the first one is more of a melee, other one is more of a fire, but they still both can use all of those attacks, and for that reason, it doesn't feel bullshit like this boss, which you fight in a one way the first minute, and then the second 2 minutes, because it's going to take longer because it's more aggressive now, you have to fight a completely different way. And you absolutely cannot reuse the strategy. It's not even like, oh, if you use that other strategy, it will be harder. No, you just completely die if you try to get behind his hind legs, because he now has moves to counter it in the second phase. And again, if he had this moves the entire game, the entire fight, perfectly fine. If you get those moves, but then he keeps them after you die, that's fine. What pisses me off is that you have to go into this fucking fight and fight this shitty fucking dog face for a minute or what have you, before you get to the second phase, and then you have the actual fight. That is what pisses me off. That is what I don't like. And when put in an abstract sense, it's the idea that, you know, the game switches up in a way that is not predictable, that is not understandable on the spot. You have to experience it, and experience means death. And fuck that. Whew. Man, it feels pretty good to get those things off my chest. Put them into perspective. Who knows, maybe I will change my mind about some of them now that I've managed to outline my thoughts about them. Maybe I'll find some logical inconclusion. Some logical fallacy. Maybe someone else will do that for me. Who knows? But at least we have it on record now. I guess the very last thing, which kind of also ties into bosses, is the combo stun lock, where an enemy attacks and then keeps attacking multiple times with its usual combo, and this combo is timed so incredibly precisely that as the character stands up and becomes vulnerable again, you immediately get hit the second time, therefore dying. I think it's bullshit. I think it's absolute bullshit. I think even in the episode said, who the fuck playtested this? There's no way someone playtested and said, yeah, this makes sense. This is a very logical, consistent mechanic, and it makes for good gameplay. No. They literally said, "Oh, people died to this? Perfect, let's make more of it." And it's fucking retarded. And I hope that it will happen less, but unfortunately, as I've been reading up on attack queues and parries, I've read that a lot of people also found problems with this particular aspect of the game as well. Oh dear. Oh my dears. Oh well. Anyway, I invite you to write any comments you want showing how much wrong I am or how I misinterpret something. Or on the other hand, maybe saying, "Oh my god, I never thought about it this way. That's amazing." Write that too as well. That's just great. In general, I just want this episodes to be kind of like a place where people come to voice frustrations about what I may say about Dark Souls 3, but to also give them perspective. So they don't just think, "Oh, I just like to shit talk the game because I'm bad at it and stuff." No, I want the game to be a certain way because that's what I came to expect from Dark Souls 1. I played Dark Souls 1 and I have certain expectations, and when they are not met, I am certainly gonna voice them while playing the fucking game and recording it. I feel like I would be doing it a disfavor if I just constantly failed in these ways and then would just be silent about it and say, "Yeah, this is fine. I don't care that I died 68 times in 5 hours of gameplay, out of which at least half of it was some bullshit." Maybe that's a bit of exaggeration, but you get the point, right? Because I received a few comments in Dark Souls 2 playthrough where some people were upset, but they never really elaborated anything because I don't think they had anything to work with. They just thought, "Okay, well, this guy sucks. He has no idea what he's doing. He hasn't even locked on at all in this game. What a noob." Now, there's like a place where they can come and hear my deeper thoughts or something. I mean, let's be honest here. Nobody watches these fucking videos anyways, so who cares? What difference does it make? But you can't tell me I didn't give it a try. There you go. So, yeah, I need to poop. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you later.